Some of you met my daughter Olivia out in the little hallway out there when we were selling books. She does an amazing job. I don't know if you noticed. And she is the reason that I do a lot of my speaking, the reason that I wrote my book, and the reason that I left my firm recently, because my desire is to help people create change and a paradigm shift for the next generation. And I'll get to the reasons why and some of the data and the statistics behind it. But I wanted to tell you a story that kind of started this. When Olivia was about 4 years old, she walked by me in a pair of my high heels with purpose. And I asked her, I'm like, where are you heading to with such, like, I've got direction. And she said, Cinderella and I are heading to New York to close a deal. And in that moment, I realized all of my concerns about raising a feminist toddler were silly. I was worried about Disney princesses. I was worried about her having a vacuum or a kitchen or any of those things, but it wasn't any of the toys she was playing with or any of the influences that were external. It was my influence that she was seeing. It was as I was click-clacking my way across the floor, heading off to another city to work a deal. It was as I was speaking in front of audiences that I was influencing her in that way. Well, we think of influencers today. What do we think of? We think of Instagram models, filters, perfect poses. And unfortunately, a lot of times, it's that expectation of perfection and beauty that our daughters see. And that sometimes even we subscribe to that comparison model. But I don't like that definition of influence. I don't want the word influence or influencer to make us think of someone who simply got a platform where they tell you that you should aspire to have a thigh gap or contoured cheekbones that could cut glass. That's not aspiration. So I'd like to break down influence and mentorship today and talk about what they really mean. The definition of influence is the capacity to have an effect on the character, development, or behavior of someone or something. It very much aligns in my mind with my favorite definition of mentor, which is trusted counselor or guide. And both of those are actually a lot better than parent if you look it up. It simply says, one that begets or brings forth offspring, which to me just makes you sound like a farm animal. So I prefer mentor and guide. We are all here because we believe in girls, and it's either because we're already an influencer or a mentor in their life, or because of the data. The data that says we need girls in order to move our society forward globally, economically, and it's because of this data that we also recognize that if we want to end patriarchal systems of power, we need strong, capable, talented, nurturing, gifted, compassionate, and brilliant women. You already know how to lead them. You're doing it right now. You're helping them earn their badges. You're teaching them about value systems. And you're turning them to hardcore little cookie hustlers. I have never seen my child step into her power as she did when she started selling cookies. She went from this introverted little person to this like little boss who is a hashtag cookie closer. I'm making that a thing. She actually says now cookies are for closers. And I watched her when we were in the office. She would go door to door in my office building, and she'd memorize the ingredients in each of the boxes of cookies that she had with her. And she's like, this is a chocolate wafer, and it has this. I'm actually, I feel like I'm a Thin Mint right now, a Thin Mint box. She actually was like, here's the ingredients of this cookie that's really delicious. How many would you like? Not, do you want to support my troop? And she said, you never ask them to say yes or no. You ask them how many boxes, and they all looked at me kind of wide-eyed. I'm like, she's good. I don't know what to tell you. But today I want to bend our hearts and minds a little bit. We know how to verbalize leadership. We do it every day. We know how to model it. But are we also modeling it when we're not in our Girl Scout uniforms, when we're not in front of them with our lesson plan? Are we modeling it in the way we speak to ourselves and those we love? You see, Olivia asked me one day, she came home from school, and she says, Mommy, is it true that if a boy hits you, it's because he likes you? And I thought about all of the things that we say, whether it's our teachers at school or it's us, we just kind of throw sometimes cliches at them or things that just make sense because that's what we've always known. We don't pay attention to the interactions. And it made me take a pause. It felt like that season when a child starts to ask a lot of questions. You know what I'm talking about, when they're like trying to understand the world around them. There's a lot of is it trues. And when she asked me that question about boys hitting you because they like you, it made me kind of step back and take a pause. Because I didn't want my responses to her to be automatic anymore. I wanted to make sure that I was imagining that future version of my daughter, Who is she going to be as a woman, as a leader, as a mother, in a relationship, and as a thriving member of society? And how are the words that are coming out of my mouth and the actions that I take going to lend to that beautiful future version of her? The other thing I also ask myself in these pauses that I take is, what would I have wanted when I was her age? Because a lot of times when we look back over the course of our lives, we think of the way we received messaging. It was kind of, children are to be seen and not heard, and we were just kind of given the paragraphs or the lesson plan and not really related to. And the other thing that I've done that I think is really important is I say, what does your heart say? Because I need my daughter to actually create a value system and a belief system within herself, so that instead of expecting all of the answers are outside of her, external, that she starts to see which messages actually resonate with her burgeoning belief system. Because I take the pause, because we have these conversations, she recently shared with me that she knows she can always trust me. She knows that she can ask me questions and she says, Mama, you tell me the real things. Because kids understand real things. A lot of people ask me how I came across my parenting style, and I didn't have a choice. Unfortunately, my mother was an alcoholic, and she spent my formative years drunk. And she was a mean drunk. So a lot of the messaging that I received was external to our family. And I had to go through life, especially my teens and 20s, creating my own guidance system. So when I had a daughter that I was to guide, and she started asking me questions, and the automatic responses were coming out in my mother's obliterated tone, I knew I had to make a change at that point in time and become a conscious parent. My daughter also came to me during a perfect storm. My firm that I used to work with was in the midst of the gender lens movement. Is anyone familiar with the gender lens movement? A few nods, okay. So the gender lens movement is basically business saying we need girls in positions of power. It's a beautiful marriage of facts and data and capitalism with heart. And it spoke to me so much because the things that I believed were suddenly being studied by Harvard and Kinsey. We've got data saying that we need girls in positions of power. They need to be decision makers in order to move our economy forward. I learned during that period of time that if you have 2 or more women on a board, the company hits targets, employees are happier, and there's better pay parity. Through those studies, I also learned that a girl's self-esteem peaks at 8 years old. And if she doesn't receive mentorship, she starts dumbing herself down in the classroom at about 7th grade. I also learned that advertising and patriarchal systems of power have pit women as enemies against one another, as competition comparison models run amok between us. We believe that we have to compete for jobs, men, success, and status. And I learned that my legacy is to help men and women question their belief systems and develop themselves, not because I want you to be successful. I want you to have your dreams realized, but even more than that, I want you to want to be a better person because of the generation that's being led, the generation that's going to step into their positions of power. This is a beautiful time in history for girls to start walking into these positions. I want to see self-development lead to generational social change. I want our daughters to walk into positions of power. I want them to walk into political office in boardrooms and marketplaces and know that they belong and they have a stand. Even most recently when I spoke at your STEAM conference, in every single session that I spoke, one little girl raised her hand and said, have you ever experienced gender discrimination? They know it's there. And I don't want them to stop and not make a choice to move into a position that we need them in because they're afraid of what's coming for them. And to them, I have always said, yes, I have experienced it, but it is women like me and women like you who are changing the conversation so that by the time you get to that job, that role, that board, wherever it may be, it's going to be easier because we're doing the work for you. And I don't want to leave our sons behind, because we also need to raise sons who are able to talk about their emotions without fear of repercussion, who understand what toxic masculine culture is, and that boys aren't bad. We love boys. You will never hear me say boys drool, never ever. Girls do rule, but boys do too. We need each other in order to move this world forward. So I left my firm. I've decided I'm going to create a movement. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be brave. I'm going to create my own media company that's surrounding these messages, right? And I wrote my book, and I was trying to decide. The name of my book is Lore. My daughter's name is Olivia. I call her Liv. I was like, what do I call this movement? What do I name this? Do I name it after one of my babies? And she was sitting in the back seat of my car one day. We have a lot of very deep conversations when I'm driving. And as we were driving along, I said, I'm trying to decide what to name my new company. Do I name it Lore or Live after one of my babies? She thought for a minute and she said, I'm not sure I want you to name a company after me, but what if Live stands for something? And I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, well, you believe in loving ourselves and loving each other. And it's a media company, so you want things to go viral. What if we make love go viral? What if love is viral? And I was just mind blown. I've been told that I should make her the chief marketing officer and give her a percentage ownership in the company, which is likely very, very true. But everything she said in that purity of heart was everything that I believed in. Because if you work on yourself, if you excavate toxic beliefs, old storylines, old messaging, if you call in only those who lift you up, if you maintain and enact boundaries, if you create presence, and if you love yourself, then that love, value, and character that you've built becomes your ripple. That is far more important, far more valuable than a curated lesson plan. So there's a few areas that I would recommend to take with you and think about as you're paying attention to how your child or the children that are in your care are receiving messaging from you. Look at your romantic and your family relationships, rather than talking about the fact that we use manners at this table. What tone are they hearing you use when you're speaking to your spouse? Is there affection there? Are they saying more fighting than love? Is there ever silent treatment? Because you are modeling a healthy relationship and gender roles in your romantic relationships. Would you want them in the same love relationship you are in today? I'm not advising anyone to get divorced. That is not why I'm here. What I am saying is take a look at what your children are carrying between you and your spouse, because that is a relationship that's being modeled for them. Toxic friendships. If your child is in another room and you have one of your girlfriends over and you're drinking a glass of wine and gossiping, what are they overhearing? You may look at them and talk to them about good friendships, but if they hear you talking negatively about someone else, is that a good model of what true friendship looks like? If you're going out of town and you don't trust your friend to take care of your child for a weekend, are they also good for you? So take a look at the people who you are bringing into your life and what your children are overhearing. What is your relationship to achievement? Are you all about that grind, that hustle, running out there? Do your children see you overtired? I know it may seem maudlin, but I spend a lot of time thinking of my life from my deathbed. I've had the beautiful blessing of having conversations with those I've loved right before they were about to leave this earth, and their perspective changes. The things that they told you during their entire life that they are almost known for suddenly aren't as important when they're ready to die, and they share with you such clarity. Do you want struggle to be what's embedded in your family DNA? When your family is looking at you at the end of your life, do you want that to be the message that you leave behind? What is your relationship with your body? How do you talk to yourself? A mother's self-talk directly correlates with a daughter's version of her body and her own internal self-talk. You may tell her that she is perfect, but do you honor your perfection? Does she hear you in solidarity with your girlfriends being like, girl, I gained some weight, and oh, I know my thighs are this, or oh, I know I've got to get my eyebrows waxed. She should not hear those things, because that is not talking about her perfection. So one of my girlfriends and I, what we did, because we recognized we were doing this, is whenever we started to, in solidarity, talk negatively about ourselves, we would look across the room and say, Jennifer, you have beautiful eyes. And she'd go, what? To get her off of that line of thinking, so that we didn't make it conscious for our children to understand, but she would say, Jeanette, you're a wonderful writer, you're a good mom, you have a beautiful smile, so that our daughters would hear us saying those positive things and hopefully wipe away the stuff they heard that before. But pay attention to these things. What is your relationship with faith, with gender roles? What do you believe? And is it true? The messages that we are sharing, whether consciously or subconsciously, are building a subconscious hum within our children. So you have to get clear on your self-talk first, and then you have to consciously build theirs. Children want to be heard, they want to be involved, they want direction. And right now my partner and I are in the process of blending a family. So we have 2 8-year-old girls that we're guiding. And I thought it would be really great to have 2 8-year-old girls in the same house at the exact same time. And it's wonderful. But there's a lot more 8-year-old emotions to deal with. So what we've done is we've created something called family dinner. So once a week we get together as a family and we sit down and we pick a subject. We talk about what it means to be a good friend, what boundaries are, respect, jealousy, negative attention, manipulation. Every single person at the table admits that they're trying to be better than they were the day before. So it's okay to come to the table with flaws, and it's okay to say that I like negative attention. I recognize that I do this. I know that I can be manipulative, and I'm working on it. I'm working on jealousy because it's hard to blend a family. So the girls have an open forum to discuss it, and guess what? They love family dinner. They love it because they're being seen and they know that their parents are also working on themselves. We talk about the fact that I'm working on anxiety and my boyfriend's working on his patience. So they can see us as whole human beings who just have a little bit more life experience because we're there to guide them. My daughter has recently asked me if we can start doing role plays. So we role play situations so that they understand how to handle them when they're away from us. Recently she wanted to role play what it would be like if they were away at college and they had a bully situation. And so they pretended to call me while they're away. Apparently they're going to school across the pond. I didn't know this. But they were in London, and they had a bully, and we were walking through this situation, and as they were explaining the bully situation to me, we were also establishing trust. We were also helping with that internal compass, and they were figuring out, okay, here are the things that I need to think about and do if I'm in a bad situation and my mother isn't around. There is a quote that has stuck with me through my entire life as a mom. From the moment I had my daughter. The devastation of a mother's love is she is always teaching her child to leave her. That is what we are doing. It is devastating, beautiful, exhausting work, but we are teaching our children to leave us, to make this world better, to have better relationships than we did, to be better people, and to be better prepared than sometimes we were. We also have date nights now, and this is a new thing where we are realizing that as the girls are about that 8, 9 years old, they're moving into the friendship kind of dance where it's like, oh, she can be my friend, not your friend, and we're having those kind of conversations throughout. So now we're creating a situation called date night where we bring girls together and we talk about what it means to be a good friend before we understand what it means to be a mean girl. And it's important for us to make sure that not only are our daughters hearing this message, but the girls around them as well, so that their friend groups are familiar with the languaging. We have bedtime prayers. Bedtime prayers allow you to see into the soul of your child. We say our prayer together, and then we ask, what is every single person grateful for, and what do you need to ask for help with? And you get to see really beautiful stuff. You get to see the things that are important to them, whether it's a friend at school, the animals downstairs, that they recognize that they have food and shelter. All of a sudden, you get to see into the soul of your child and what kind of person they are becoming, and it's a beautiful thing. I will tell you that all of this is very intentional. It's beautiful, and it is a lot of work. I had a friend ask me recently, she's like, aren't you tired with all of the conscious parenting that you're doing, all of these conversations you're having? And I said, yes, it's very tiring, it's exhausting, but I see these beautiful people being built. And to be honest, this is where powerful women are made. This is where conscious mothers are born. This is where leaders learn conflict resolution, where paradigms shift, cycles end, and to steal Olivia's line, this is where love goes viral. Thank you. It was shared with me that I could take a few minutes for any questions. If anyone has any questions, I have room for like 5. Happy to talk about it. Covered it all. Wonderful. Thank you guys so much.